What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if it's your first time here. You know, we've all experienced power outages at one time or another, and many people have experienced power outages many times. It's just a normal cycle of things in the way the power grid works, because so many things can bring that power grid down even during, good times. For example, a ice storm can weight those lines down, break those lines down, and the power goes out. A severe windstorm can knock a lot of trees down over top of the power lines, and your power goes out. However, it normally will come back on within a few hours to 24 hours at most, in most cases. And we saw what happens during a longer term grid down type situation this past winter in Texas. They weren't prepared for that at all, and when the grid went down, they had a lot of trouble coping because they hadn't prepared, and it wasn't something that they were used to actually having to deal with. So if you have things that you don't normally deal with, then you're normally not prepared for those unexpected type things when they do happen. And we saw in Texas how quickly things can fall apart when the power grid goes down. And like I said, we've all experienced power outages. Last year here where I am, we had power outage, and my power was out here for 3 days. Wasn't any trouble, really. I would rather have it on. However, I was prepared for a grid down type situation, and it wasn't that big of a deal because I have generators. I have a solar generator, I have a gas powered generator, I have battery charging units, and I have lanterns. I have everything I need. I have gas heat, I also have wood heat, I have electric heat in this house. So I had 3 different ways to actually heat in this house. However, most people aren't prepared at all for a grid down type situation. And when that happens, long term, things are going to fall apart very quickly because, the grid holds society together. Our society, our modern society, lives on electricity and grid power. And things can bring that down, but most of the time, it comes back up in a few hours. And usually it is localized type of event. Now, if you have the power go down, the grid go down over wide areas, there's 3 different power grids in the U.S., or so I've read. There's 3 different power grids in the U.S., and if one of those power grids completely went down, it would wipe out power for large areas. And it wouldn't take long if the power in those areas was down for any length of time, 3, 4, 5, 6 days. And that's a short period of time, actually. However, things would start falling apart. And the severity of how things would fall apart would depend on, of course, the location. It would depend on the time of year. Like during a heat wave, there's a lot of pull from that power grids to keep those homes cooled via air conditioning. Winter time, people have the heat on, so a lot of power is pulled. So lots of things can bring that down. And when that's down, it's going to cause a lot of problems. First with, keeping those homes cool during the warmer summer months, and during the winter time, the heating. And it wouldn't take long for everything to fall apart in those areas, and especially in those urban areas, because in urban areas, people definitely are not prepared for any long-term grid down type situation. And when the grid goes down, it's not just your lights, your television, your heating that doesn't work. When the grid goes down, you have power outages over those wide areas. Then you also have critical infrastructure will shut down in those areas. You can't go to the store to purchase anything when the power goes down in most circumstances, in most places. And the power goes down, you can't pump gas, gasoline for your vehicles. All kinds of things are tied to that power grid. Actually, just about everything in our modern society is tied to that power grid. And unfortunately, there's several things that can bring that power grid down to a halt and for long periods of time. And one of those, of course, is an EMP. You don't hear a lot about EMPs anymore. Used to be people talked about EMPs in the prepper community all the time, an EMP or even a CMP, which is from the sun. And an EMP is from, a EMP device that is man-made to knock out power in wide areas. Both could bring the power grid down over huge areas and for, long periods of time. Guys, all those transformers that you see on the telephone poles, when an EMP strikes, it will knock out all those transformers. The power from that EMP hits those lines and follow those lines through and will burn those transformers out. And we have millions of transformers in the United States on those power poles. When those get knocked out, it's going to take a long time to replace those. And I think those are made in actually 2 different places where they're made at, and neither one of those are in the United States. So they have to be imported. And the grid hasn't been hardened. So an EMP could knock the power out for long periods of time. I'm talking years if that happens. And even 6 months with the power grid being down over large areas or over the entire United States would result in mass chaos, mass death. I mean, it would be completely horrible situation to be in. And not only that, you could have attacks, cyber attacks, that could actually bring the power grid down. Lots of things can happen to bring that power grid down, and even economic type collapse can actually cause rolling blackouts. If you do any research about collapsed societies, collapsed countries that has had economic collapse, like Argentina, for example, the power stayed on in certain areas. However, it was off and on in a lot of areas. It was rolling blackouts at different times. So you never knew when the power was going to just go down. And like I said, everything is tied to the power grid. And a lot of times you will have, a domino effect. This will happen, this will happen, this will happen, resulting in something else happening. And that's the way it usually goes. If you have an economic collapse, people aren't working. People aren't getting out and keeping that power flowing, so it can shut down, can have those rolling type blackouts in different areas at different times. Say, for example, if you had an actual pandemic, not like this one we've had here over the last couple of years, year and a half or so, but an actual real pandemic where you actually had, just about everyone has been hospitalized or is dead from, a pandemic. It's going to cause people to be in fear, not going to go to work. They're not going to keep that power grid going. They're not going to be able to go to work because they've been hospitalized, or worse, they passed away. And it takes training, it takes skills, it takes knowledge to keep all those systems going. And an actual pandemic where people actually died in mass could, and most likely would, cause the power grid to go down. And when the power grid goes down for any length of time, chaos is definitely going to erupt, because people are used to having the creature comforts of the things that constant grid power supply brings. Air conditioning, electric heat, television, everything that they enjoy, their computers and things, their video games, being able to go to the store to buy food, be able to go to the gas station to get gasoline for your vehicle, to go to ball games, to do just about everything requires electricity. And if that electricity goes down, these things will shut down, especially if it goes down for an extended period. And unfortunately, like I said, many things, this is just a small example of the things that can bring the power grid down, but many things can bring that power grid down for short periods of time, and we see that often. However, many things can also bring that power grid down for long periods of time. I'm talking 6, 7, 8, 9 months, or even years in certain circumstances. If the power grid went down for, a couple of years, 6 months even, the world around us would quickly break out into complete and total chaos. And so many people would suffer, so many people would die. Even the hospitals where the sick are taken to, where the sick are killed or cured for, without constant grid power, those hospitals have to shut down. They won't be able to function. They have generators and things for a couple of 3 days. However, 6 months, a year, 2, 3 years, or even more, if the power grid went down, those hospitals would shut down. Everything that we know in our modern society would shut down. And unfortunately, it's going to suck. Even shutting down for, say, a week, 3 days, sucks. And most people aren't prepared for even those short-term type, grid down type situations. And if you have that happen for months on end, the grid power is down, lots of death, lots of suffering, and even for preppers, it's going to suck. And I hope you all realize the potential of that happening, and it will happen eventually. It could happen today, it could happen 2 months from now, it could happen 2 years from now. I don't know when it's going to happen, but major grid down situation over wide areas for long periods of time is going to happen. It's just the way the system is set up. And most people aren't prepared at all, and they're going to suffer greatly and very quickly. However, even preppers who have prepared for such an event are also going to suffer greatly, because we're still used to society the way it is, even as preppers. We're used to being able to go out and buy more supplies, go out and, get gasoline for our vehicles, to be able to travel around and go places or do things. And just like right now, you're watching this video on the internet, on a computer that is powered in your home, or a cell phone that has been charged from power in your home, from grid power. And even as preppers, like I said, we're used to having electricity. And even if you're off grid, you are used to society having electricity. You're used to actually leaving your off-grid property and going out to the grocery store to get certain items that you can't grow or can't make where you are. You're used to getting out and traveling. You're used to having, the internet. You're used to having your cell phone. And it's going to suck, guys. It's going to suck greatly. And I'm afraid that most people, even people who watch this YouTube channel, are not prepared at all. They are not prepared for what's coming. They're not prepared for the realities of a long-term grid down situation, because it's going to suck for preppers. It's going to suck for everyone. However, it's going to suck even worse for non-preppers. So do the best you can, guys. Try to figure out what you would do, how you would heat your home, how you would have light to see, how you would have communications, how you would do everything you do now that you can't live without if the power grid went down for an extended period of time. And prepare for that. Prepping saves lives. Prepping is very, very important. A lot of people look at this as a game, as something that is a hobby. However, it should be taken very, very seriously, because hard times are here, but it's going to get much, much worse. And we're going to see a grid down type situation sooner or later. So guys, stop pretending to be preppers, stop pretending to prep, and stop thinking that you are prepared, because you're not. Even I can do more than I've done, and I'm trying to do more now. I've been at this a long time. However, you should never sit down and rest. You should never think that you are completely prepared for everything. It's an ongoing process. No matter how much you are prepared, you should always strive to become more prepared, more self-reliant. Because grid down situation an economic collapse, hyperinflation, a real pandemic. Lots of things can happen to cause society to come to its knees, and everything that causes that is going to suck for everyone, even preppers. So guys, get ready, get prepared, do everything you possibly can, because hard times are here right now. However, you're going to continue to get much, much worse. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. I'm Creekmore. I'm out of here, and I'll see you all in the next video, hopefully.